Hey everybody, welcome back to another video episode, recipe of the week with Cooking Rules with Jules. That is me. My name is Julia Pontanis, and I'm here to help make your kitchen experience not only easy, but incredibly healthy as well. So today, I have a nice little kind of heirloom recipe for you. I will be making a traditional red Italian spaghetti sauce. Sometimes it's referred to as gravy, just depending where you're at. But when I grew up, it was always just spaghetti sauce. So here we are. What you will need for this recipe is no canned tomatoes. Repeat after me. No canned tomatoes. Perfect. This is a great way how to use up over-ripened tomatoes without letting them go to waste. Again, here we are, it's fall, but in the south, the tomatoes are still pretty ripe, and I will show you what I have here. So for the sake of time, I have already rough chopped and diced about 3 pounds of tomatoes, and I'll show you how I do that. I have one left over here. And these are vine ripe, and they were actually grown in Michigan, and they look delicious. I have an onion chopped, so I'm gonna show you how to do that as well. A nice little hack that I learned not too long ago. I have 3 really gigantic cloves of garlic that I have just roughly chopped into little slices. And then this is where really all the magic happens. Very good quality olive oil. Need to have lots of that because fat is imperative to balance the amount of acid that is going on with these tomatoes. And the way that we're going to add that sugar, instead of adding sugar, we're not going to do that. We're basically going to caramelize these tomatoes and let their natural sugars come out. You can most certainly use an Italian seasoning mix. I like to modify the taste of what I'm putting in there. So sometimes I want more basil, sometimes I don't. But anyways, I have here some dried thyme, parsley flakes, oregano flakes, which are kind of sweet, basil, also kind of on the sweet side. I like to add a little heat to mine, so some red pepper flakes. Of course, we're going to need sea salt. And you'll also need either an immersion blender, a regular stand-up blender, Vitamix, Ninja. One of those things is going to help you puree our tomatoes. And I traditionally, again, don't use any prepackaged products. However, my sister had some leftover tomato sauce that needs to be used up, so of course I don't want it to go to waste. This is going to be a little bit thicker, which will be good as a thickening agent for my sauce, so we're just going to add it all in there. And of course, as we can see, the only ingredient on there is tomatoes. Perfect. So this is how we're going to get this party started. I'm going to get my pan heating over, well, for the sake of time for us, I'm gonna crank the heat up on this baby and let it come to a medium heat. And then I'm gonna start with my tomatoes. In the meantime, I'm gonna give you a little hack on this onion. So when you turn this down so I don't singe my arms on fire, I've cut the bottom off this onion, but left like that little hairy nubby part on the top. So when I go to dice it, I've already taken the skin off, it's gonna stay together and not go everywhere. And of course, this pot is in the way. So how am I gonna do this? I'm gonna pause and start all over again. Hang on. Okay, pan's off the heat, just for the sake of demoing. It's always important to know your order of operations, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and slice long ways into my onion, and then I'm gonna flip it on its side and give it that nice dice. So as you can see, my onions aren't going everywhere, and at the end, all I have to do is throw away my little hairy top. So there's that guy. And then for the tomato, I don't de-seed my tomatoes. If you wanna do that so it's less watery, be my guest. It's gonna cook out anyways, but I'm gonna slice it in half. I'm gonna go through, I'm gonna cut out the little stem nub, cut it into quarters, like so. Whoop, that guy just lost his guts. And give it a nice rough chop. Okay, Now that that's happened, we can get back to the magic of the pan. Another little quick note about this recipe while my pan is heating up is that I always use a wooden spoon because that's traditional, my grandma used it, and I just couldn't do red sauce without that. And two, a recipe like this, the most important ingredient is thyme, not the seasoning, T-I-M-E, thyme. You have to baby this sauce. So as you're cooking it, you gotta taste it. Does it need more salt? Does it need more fat? Does it need more spices? You are the chef. Taste it and modify as needed. Now this pan is just about ready. So I'm gonna go ahead and be very generous with the amount of olive oil I have going on here. And when I say generous, I mean I'm gonna give it a good, probably 1/8 of an inch coat on the bottom of my pot here. Swirl it around, and now be very careful. I'm gonna start by adding my onions. Any water that's gonna go into that pot, that oil is gonna fly back at you. So please, please, please make sure that you do not have any wet going on when you do this. So I have a really nice sizzle. In goes onions. I have 2-part onion here, one that I already pre-chopped before I even started filming, and now this one. So now I'm gonna get my onions in here to get nice and happy. Oops, a little piece of skin left there. Okay, so hang on, I dropped my towel. I swear it is always something. Okay, so while I got the onions in the pot, I'm gonna go ahead and immediately start to season them with salt. Again, know your palate. I'm not gonna go real heavy because as the sauce cooks, it's going to need more salt, and I'm going to be very careful with that. So I'm just gonna give it enough to coat it, and we want these guys to get nice and translucent. So I'm gonna crank my heat up a little bit, and the oil is nice and coated with these onions, so the idea is we want them to caramelize and get their sweetness to come out of them. And when that happens, I'm gonna go ahead and add my spices in next. So that hot oil is going to help to allow the spice to release its natural oils and become extremely aromatic. My onions are starting to get that nice translucent color, and I've got a nice little simmer happening here in my pot. So now I'm gonna go ahead and start to add my spices. So I'm gonna add a little bit of basil, not a lot, and I say that, and when you watch me dump it in there, you're gonna be like, that's a lot. But anyways, like I said, use your own chef palate. Basil is very sweet to me, and I really want more of a savory flavor. Oregano, also kind of sweet, but a little bit different notes there. Parsley, if I had fresh parsley, I would use it, but we just happen to have dried parsley, so I'm gonna throw that in there too. Oh yes, this is smelling delicious. Now, my new favorite cooking herb is thyme. Sometimes herbs call out to me. Right now, I'm all about the thyme. So we're gonna put thyme into here, and really, I want this to be my showcase because it is very savory and very, very earthy. And then now time for a little heat. In this household, we like it spicy. So I'm going to be generous with these pepper flakes. And give that a go. Stir it up and let it saute a little bit more until you can smell those spices starting to release their aromatics. Now the way that I'm doing this sauce today, it is of course Paleo and Whole30 approved, but I'm also going to add one more ingredient, which is meatballs, which I have already cooked before I start to make this video, and I'll link my meatball video down below, which by the way, if you like what I'm doing here, every Wednesday is your recipe of the week, so hit subscribe. If I could talk, give me a thumbs up, tell me why you liked it, and if you don't, I need to know why as well. So anyways, talk to me, I'm here. I have nothing else going on. I'm just being a CrossFitter, cook, blogger, content creator at present. Oh, and online coach. But I'm only doing that 6 hours a week. So let me know how it goes. But those meatballs are also going to add another dimension of fat and flavor into my sauce. So once this sauce is already cooked, processed and simmering, I'm going to add my delicious meatballs, which are also paleo, no grain involved, grass-fed beef organic, into my sauce and let that just simmer and simmer and simmer. This can be served over veggie noodles. You can do it over spaghetti squash. I think my sister and I are going to do it over cauliflower tonight, maybe some roasted cauliflower. So this is super veggie and protein heavy. And of course you have all those really good fats with the organic olive oil. So, yum. This is starting to smell really amazing. So I'm just going to let this stir another minute or two. And then I'm going to ever so slowly add in those tomatoes so that I don't get splattered with oil. And I am going to season with salt very generously. But wait, where's the garlic, Julia? Not yet. Garlic will burn and it is very finicky. And I want to get that flavor at the very last minute. So I'm gonna go ahead and there we go. Basically we have like tomato stew going on here. Oh yes. Stir that in. Let me get the rest of my tomatoes. And I'm not going to put my spices away, just yet, because I might want to add more, except for the time. Oh, just kidding. I have more time in the spice cabinet, just to see if I need a little bit more depth or flavor to it. Back with my wooden spoon. Give this guy a stir. I'm actually going to crank the heat up off of this because I want these tomatoes to break down and start to reduce, like they would be in a canned or in a like a stewed tomato, or if you were to get like a tomato paste. I'm looking for that kind of thickness. And I'm also looking for salt. This go around, I'm going to just dump this into my hand. That's probably a teaspoon of salt, and I'm just going to give that a go. And give this a stir, and then give this some time. Once these tomatoes have started to cook down, I'm going to reduce the heat. I'm going to give it a little bit of a taste test, and then we're going to go from there. As you can see, this is to almost like a boil, and you can see those tomatoes really releasing their juices. And I'm really just going to let it sit here for another probably 15 to 20 minutes. And I'm getting ready to add in that garlic here in just a moment. I went ahead and added my garlic, and as you can tell, these tomatoes are really starting to break down, and this is turning more into like tomato stew than anything else. You can tell how the tomato is coming off. It's kind of curling back. Let me see if I can find one. Like the skin has come off. That's okay, because we are going to pulverize it. And it also is important to remember that do not, and I repeat, do not put this in the blender extremely hot and blend it, because you will burn yourself and you will have explosions. Now, if you have an immersion blender and can just dip it in there and blend it out, that's a different story, but still remove it from the heat. So this sauce has been simmering, I'd say probably a good 15 to 20 minutes, and it is the consistency that I want, which is kind of like this nice little stew. And as you can tell, it's reduced down about 1.5 inches and let go of all that water. So once this cools off just a tad bit, I'm going to go over there to my Vitamix, give it a whirl, get it back into the pan, and continue to simmer. And welcome back, my friends. My sauce has cooled down and I have pulverized it into my Vitamix here. So it is like a marinara, and it is still really hot. So I'm going to be very careful when I pour this in here not to splatter myself. In fact, I'm going to give this pan a little bit of a hand here. And I'm going to get this back over a low heat because I want to add in my meatballs. Excuse me, that was half burp, half hiccup. Meatballs, which are heating up with a little bit of sauce, about 1/4 cup of sauce, just to get all the good bits off the bottom of my pan. And that, of course, is called fond, F-O-N-D, and that is where all that delicious flavor comes from the caramelizing of those and the browning of the meatballs. I am now going to go ahead and add in my regular tomato sauce, which with my magic wooden spoon here, I'm going to slowly start to integrate it. Now, when I tasted this sauce earlier, it needed a little sweetness, so I added some more basil, and the salinity is good, but this particular tomato is also going to help bring that sweetness factor up. So I want to make sure and keep it thick, that I integrate it appropriately. Probably would also help if I turned the heat back on. Cooking fails. Okay, here we go. So I got that over a nice low heat. And there was a decent amount in there. I'd say there's probably, I don't know, half of a container. But basically, it's just gonna add more to my sauce. It's gonna help even out that little bit of acidity. And then once my meatballs start to deglaze in that pan there, that fat is also going to help level everything out. So I've got a really good looking sauce going on here. You of course can stop right here if you'd like, let it simmer to your heart's content, and serve it over whatever medium you should choose. I'm going to continue it on and add my meatballs and then let that simmer. So now that all of this is looking good, let's kill the heat here. Get rid of those tongs, so we'll stick those there. Be careful with meatballs in the sauce. You don't want them to fall apart. So we want to avoid stirring, over stirring that, because you'll just end up with more like a bolognese. And all that comes out. Perfect. And into the sink we go. I'm just going to submerge my little meatballs in there. Keep this pan on low, this pot on low, and simmer until perfection. As always, you guys, thanks for hanging out with me. I really love cooking. I really love sharing my ideas. And if you have any special requests, I want to do them for you. So until next Wednesday, unless I'm traveling, which I do that a lot these days, I will be heading back to Florida at some point in December and visit with family. So be on the lookout for Mom's Retro Kitchen. That's all I have to say. All right, guys, hope you're having a fantastic day, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.